Hello and welcome to Bespoke Unit. I'm CP and in this video I'm reviewing the Drew Estate Liga Privada Unico Serie Velvet Rat. As per usual, this review was undertaken using the Bespoke Unit Cigar Formula, a quantifiable review matrix that you can either use at home for your own reviews, or if you're short on time, you can simply go to the description below, find the link to the full review, where you'll see the PDF version of this cigar formula, which will give you a quick overview of the cigar and its characteristics. Furthermore, these cigars were stored in the Boveda acrylic humidor that you can see behind me. It's beside me. For a period of 3 weeks to make sure they were properly acclimated and prepared for the review, we used 69% Boveda packs for this and monitor them with a Boveda Butler. It was first released in 2012 as part of a limited run and then became part of the full lineup in 2017. It is a Liga Privada and the range itself is known as the Unico Serie, whereas the Vitola, which is a 6.25 by 46 Panatella or Lonsdale, is actually the Velvet Rat itself. It is manufactured at the La Gran Fabrica Drew Estate in Esteli, Nicaragua, using an accordion bunching style. It features a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper and a Brazilian Mata Fina binder. This may sound familiar if you're already accustomed to or you know of the Liga Privada number 9, which we already reviewed, and you'll see a link up here and down in the description. It features Nicaraguan and Honduran fillers, and I'm really looking forward to this because I quite like this sort of Vitola cigar. It also has a distinctive pigtail head, which is why I have one here that is already cut so I can show you that. So let's jump into the review and we'll start with the look and feel. The first thing you'll notice is this is basically dripping in oils. It has a very shiny dark wrapper with a chocolate fondant color. It is almost reminiscent of the center of a chocolate fondant that's just been opened and is oozing everywhere. The roll is a little bit rustic, again following with the Liga Privada number 9 concept. It's gone for this sort of artisanal backdoor rustic side of things. It does have, though, a nice firm spring in the body. The veins are somewhat present, but they only lend to this sort of rustic charm that it's created. As for the aromas on the foot, you have this rich bouquet of gourmand notes, notably tonka bean and some leather and some musky laudanum, but it does have a kind of fruity essence about it, even though I couldn't pick up any individual fruity notes. Moving on to the Prelight, so like I said, I already cut one here. The draw is ideal. Again, it delivers slightly fruity, caramelized notes, but what I actually picked out were notes of chocolate, pralines, and arguwood. Arguwood being this resin used for making oud, which is common in perfumery. It has a sort of vanilla-y, resinous, almost tobacco-y smell and flavor, which can also be likened to musk. Now, with all that being said, let's jump in and light this up, and I'll see you in a second. So here I am, well into the first third. Not finished it completely yet, but I'm well advanced now, about an inch of ash. And as you can see, it's beautiful white ash, and we have an almost perfectly straight burn line, except for a little bit that just juts out here. The flavor profile is unctuous, it's sweet, and it is flavoursome, but it's quite complex and it's hard to discern individual notes. The first third currently consists of some burnt caramel. Indeed, the sweetness does echo through, but with a slight charred effect. You have some dark chocolate, very dark, bold chocolate, sort of 90% cacao, with a buttery presence, and then there's a slight aromatic quality, which I'm kind of torn if it's aromatic or spicy, but right now it resembles burnt rosemary or charred rosemary. Here we are at the second third. I'm at exactly the halfway point. Unfortunately, I clumsily knocked off some of the ash, and so there you go. Otherwise, the ash was going very, very strong. You see, it came off perfectly flat. I'm quite impressed. Great burn line right now. It's quite a narrow burn line. I expected it to be a bit thicker, but otherwise it does look great. In terms of flavor profile, we've had a slight evolution, but it's nothing mind-blowing, to be honest. We're now looking at a woodier profile. It's taken on some bitter characteristics, and there is still an aromatic property. As I mentioned in the first third, there was some rosemary. This is closer now to charred bay leaf. It's a little bit more neutral, but has substance. Meanwhile, the woody characteristic, I would liken that to rosewood. It's quite fragrant. It doesn't quite have the thickness and body of oak. Meanwhile, the dark chocolate has a transition to cacao nib being the husks of the fruit. This is quite, it does have a slight woody property. There is some chocolatiness to it, but it isn't sweet and it isn't particularly buttery. The second third is a little bit stronger in terms of body, but it isn't a huge change so far. Let's see what happens when we get to the final third. And here we are in the final third. As you can see, we have some excellent smoke production. Indeed, throughout the second third and all the way to the beginning of the final third, and I'm not that far through the final third to be perfectly honest, but I'm well into it to get a good impression of the flavors that it produces, that the smoke production is superb. The burn line is exceptional. We have a nice straight burn line, very thin burn line as well. As I noticed in the second third, I thought it was interesting that it's still the case, given that this is such thick and oily tobacco. In terms of flavors, we do get an interesting transition from the second third. We still have a dominant woodiness, and in this case, rather than it being rosewood, it's now more cherrywood. You still get some of that fruitiness that I mentioned in the look and feel earlier. That kind of has come back, but it's very mellow and quite subtle. Similarly, there's just a sprinkle of black pepper, and there is some succulent molasses, but it's not sweet. It is more of the sort of black treacle molasses, really thick and almost bitter. As for its overall complexity, this cigar is quite complex. It does have a bundle of nuances and varying different notes throughout. The mouthfeel remains smooth and velvety, quite heavy on the palate, but at the same time, not overwhelmingly so. The astringency is balanced. You're not going to get any excessive salivation or dryness on your tongue, and the balance and the palate stimulation is nicely distributed throughout your mouth. When it comes to the life cycle, this cigar is a little bit on the light side. It doesn't have such distinctive evolutions. They are quite subtle and they come around somewhat slowly. And then the finish is not as long as I expected. At least it's not as long as on the Liga Privada number 9. It's a little bit shorter, although you do get some flavors that will linger on the tongue. They don't stay for very long. And then the residual scent in the room is very strong, it's quite powerful. This is, after all, a very similar blend to the Liga Privada number 9. It does last for quite a while, but it does have a pleasant presence as well. Moving on to the burn and construction. Excellent draw, nice airflow all the way through. The temperature remains quite cool if you smoke it slowly, and indeed this is a cigar, because of its narrow ring gauge, merits a very slow and patient smoking experience. Don't rush it, otherwise it will heat up. The burn angle is excellent, nice and straight throughout. I haven't had to touch this cigar up really. Maybe in the first third, I can't remember exactly, but if I didn't mention it earlier, that means I didn't need to. And the backbone is very good. You get these nice chunks of ash, although I did have one that did plop off onto my lap unceremoniously. Moving now on to the overall experience, and first I'm going to talk about the band. I actually really like this. It's exactly the same as the Liga Privada number 9. The difference being that instead of it saying Liga Privada number 9, it says Velvet Rat, which is kind of a cool name. It also says at the top, exclusivamente para el jefe, exclusively for the boss, and indeed the story behind the Liga Privada number 9, it was a blend that Steve Saka would smoke and enjoy himself, and this has carried on through onto the Velvet Rat. Moving on to the box. I don't have the box on me, but I have seen a couple of pictures. It's a 10 count box, very similar to the Liga Privada number 9, and it's probably closer to the Flying Pig, the short Gordito size. It does have the same wooden structure and the decorative black band. Then when it comes to the value of the cigar, admittedly, this is a bit on the pricey side, where the Liga Privada number 9 is going to be around the $15. For a single, you're looking at about $16.70. And if you were to buy a box of 10, you probably get just under $1 knocked off each, the price of each cigar, so $15.80. So yeah, more like 90 cents. It's a bit pricey perhaps for a cigar like this, but I think the blend is very interesting. It is a unique cigar and it does offer you good value. And then for the occasion, now I think I was a little bit harsh on the Liga Privada number 9 because I said that it was a cigar that would be difficult to have in a formal occasion. That means because of its sort of artisanal rustic style band. Nevertheless, I do think that given if you go to certain occasions and you're around other connoisseurs, they will recognize this is quite a premium cigar. And because of the Velvet Rat Vitola, because it's long, thin, and quite elegant, it increases its level of formality and it can be easier to integrate into lavish occasions. That being said, it's also a great cigar for quiet contemplation, late at night, with a good buddy and a glass of cognac. But we'll get onto pairings in just a second. Well, actually, we'll get onto them right now. So here at the bottom right-hand corner, we have our pairings. This isn't scored. This is just a thought exercise that we have at the end of every single review. So first of all, I would consider dark chocolate being the perfect pairing with this, especially if you're going to have a spirit drink. Dark chocolate will help heighten the creaminess and also impart some of its flavors into the cigar's bouquet. Similarly, you could consider some roasted chestnuts, which are going to be quite nice, especially imagine smoking this late at night in the height of winter, or is it the depth of winter, next to a roaring fire with this cigar in your hand and some roasted chestnuts, a very warming experience. Alternatively, you could always have this with a beef stew or following a dinner of beef stew, because the stew tends to have very rich and full smoky flavors that will be extended through this cigar. When it comes to beverages, cognac, as I mentioned earlier, would be a grand choice. A nice, dark, mature cognac, an XO or an Affine Champagne cognac will probably be your better options, especially something that has a very musky and ambery flavor profile. Otherwise, you could go for an Anillo rum. If you do go down the rum route, opt for something perhaps of an English style of rum, something like an Appleton Estate 21 from Jamaica. That would be a good choice. And finally, espresso is obviously an excellent choice with a cigar like this. You probably want to serve your espresso towards the end, somewhere where I am, so you can enjoy it as a palate cleanser. Anyway, that's all there is from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a like, a subscribe, and leave us a comment if you have tried the Velvet Rat and you want to share your experiences, or if you have any questions about this cigar. Until our next video, head to bespokeunit.com and see all the other lifestyle subjects that we cover. I'm sure that there'll be something that you will love.